So we're now live and we're going to talk about listings. I have a question for you guys to start. Listings. If we're preparing a listing, then who are we dealing with? Seller. Seller, right? So right above listing, I want you to write seller. I want you to go to where it says listing property. It says to acquire their inventories, brokers, salespeople must obtain listings, which are properties that they're authorized to offer for sale. Now, who has the authorization? The broker, because everything we do is on behalf of the broker. Very good. Listing agreements next is, these are acts of or contracts of employment. You are employed for a week, you're employed for 2 weeks, you're employed for 6 months or a year, whatever you agree with the seller. Good? Yes?
Yes.
Great. These things are easy, so we just move forward. Common sense, but we already talked about this in chapter 3 as well. If you're selling somebody's property, then you got to have a written authorization if you expect compensation as well, right?
Yes.
All right, next is where we stop a little bit. It says, the agreement must state the rate or exact amount of commission. Underline rate or exact amount of commission. Underline it. And it also must specify, please underline, definite termination date. Definite termination date. Good. So at this point where I have to tell you very simply that when you do your listings, it's not that hot anymore. We focus from this. Can you go all the way back? So at this point, what we do is I'm knocking on their door and say, hey, would you like to sell? They say yes. Great. So I have to tell you up front, right? Up front that I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars or X percentage. And the deal is going to end in 6 months from now on this particular date. So it has to be that specific. So pretty much in the state of New Jersey, it's required that the seller is fully aware up front of how much they're going to have to pay in connection with this service that we're providing. Okay, we're going to talk about it in a little bit, that some states might allow that service to be charged at the end at whatever rates. Okay, not Jersey. So up front, the seller must be fully aware. That's why we have this. Okay, at listing. Now, can we come up with a verbal listing, an oral agreement?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Even though we have to put it in writing, the Real Estate Commission does allow you to list the property just based on the verbal agreement. I personally do not agree with that, personally, right? But they do allow you to do so as long as within 5 days of the agreement, you put it in writing, okay? The problem is, if you find a buyer within those 5 days, what can the seller do? Change his or her mind. You listed for free. That's my problem. So it says with an oral agreement, the broker cannot earn a commission if he or she effects a sale before the memorandum is delivered to the client, or if the client revokes or terminates the oral agreement. I just put it this way, very simple. Are you that desperate for money? Because if you are, go do something else. Go do Uber, go do, sell some stuff. Do something. but not try to list something without having in writing. It's the worst thing that can happen.
Go rob the bank after class?
Absolutely. Why not? He already has the, right? I know you're ready. Plus, listen, I agree with you putting him out.
I didn't
You know what?
put him out.
You did.
You said I put him.
You did. I'll have the camera. Here's the thing. You're 23. What's the worst that can happen? 10 years in jail?
Something like that.
Yeah. That's it. As long as they don't find the money, we're good.
Get that life insurance.
Get the life insurance. Everybody's set. Don't worry. I'll hide the money for you.
Me too.
Me too,
And
she
I'll-
says.
I'll invest it.
Right.
Have some more.
Anyway,
The worst that could happen, might come out wearing a skirt.
Oh my God.
it could. Or pants hanging down your legs. Anyway, all right. Listing agreements. There's different kinds of listing agreements authorized or used in New Jersey. We have open listing, exclusive agency listing, or exclusive right to sell listing. For now, all I want you guys to do is highlight exactly as it is here, and I'll cover it in a second with an example. So, the next thing I want you to highlight, if you guys are done, is next page, exclusive agency listing. Also highlights exactly as it is here, and I'll explain it in a second. I'm sorry, right there. You good? Highlight exactly as it is here, exclusive agency. And ready? Finally, exclusive right to sell listing. Now, the reason why I tell you guys to highlight first and then I address it because it's self-explanatory, but I want to what's in writing. So when you read, you'll understand. But I like to do a few comparisons to this. Open listing, exclusive agency, exclusive right to sell. I compare it to open relationship, being engaged, and then being married. Okay. If it's an open relationship, so open listing, what are we doing? Seeing other people, right? So are we serious about this relationship? Not at all. So this is where a seller goes knock on doors, guys. Gonna go to Remax and say, hey, ISIS and Remax, could you please, if you find a buyer, let me know. Then I go to Weichert and say, Olga, Weichert, if you have a buyer, let me know. I'm gonna go to Century 21, Shanice, if you have a buyer, let me know.
I ain't Century 21.
Huh?
I'm not Century 21.
For the sake of this example, okay? See, you just messed with my full flow. Ron, is it okay if I put you in the RA for a second? All right, it's just for the sake of the example. I mean, I ain't in Century 21. What's wrong with you? So I go knock on several different brokerage doors, and I offer my property for sale. How much work are you guys going to put into it if you know that I'm just knocking on doors, right? It's an open relationship. It's not serious. You got it? And if I sell through my own efforts, do I have to pay you anything? No. Exclusive agency is like being engaged, meaning we're committed to one person, right? So in this case, committed to, let's say, Remax. Is it okay if this section here is Remax? Just want to, all right, so. But we're committed here to Remax, and you guys are Century 21, Weichert, whatever you guys are okay with, all right? So I bring my property to Remax and say, hey guys, my property's up for sale. I'm giving it to you guys exclusively. Okay? If Weichert or whoever brings a buyer, okay, then I pay you and you split with their broker. Good so far? Okay. But we're engaged. Are we fully committed yet?
No.
We didn't get married yet. So there's still a chance for me to bounce. Okay? So if I find a buyer through my own efforts, do I have to pay you guys? No. Like, you're the only ones advertising my property. But just like open listing, if I find a buyer through my own efforts, I don't have to pay anybody. And then we come to exclusive right to sell. This is marriage. Fully committed. And no matter what, I could not divorce without some type of penalty. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm fully committed.
What about the prenup?
We never signed a prenup. So, but that's the thing. I'm committed to Remax. Okay? And if I find a buyer, Remax still gets paid something. You guys got it? Open listing, nobody gets paid if nobody brings a buyer, and I can sell through my own efforts. Exclusive agency, only one agency lists the property, but if I find a buyer through my own efforts, then I don't have to pay. Exclusive right to sell, one agency, and still committed, they get paid regardless of who finds the buyer. You guys got it? So marriage. Now, I always ask the same question in every class. Which one of these do you think is the best for your client, the seller? I'm sorry? Which one did you say? This one? Why? Actually, before I say that, by show of hands, who thinks the best for the client is open listing? One? Maya, really? Open relationships? You go down like that? Like
For the
it's
seller.
all cool? What about exclusive agency? Who thinks is exclusive agency? Ron? Okay, because you're committed to one, but you can still bounce out, right? So you like to be engaged, not married, kind of?
I say open.
You say open as well?
Yeah.
All right. Open too? All right, cool. It's good to know where you guys stand. Just saying.
More real estate.
All right. So by a show of hands, who thinks this one is the best one for the seller? 1, 2, 3 hands. You open as well? You decided now?
Yeah.
You're young. You just want to bounce around and figure it out later. Okay, got you. Olga, did you decide on any?
Yeah, could be this one because you
I like, please.
you're gonna receive money and maybe you don't have to spend too much time because anyway, if the sellers sell the property for other place, still you're gonna receive the commission.
But which one is best for the seller, your client?
Not for you.
The seller, you
Ah,
said.
the
The seller.
Definitely not this one.
No, it's not this one.
Definitely not?
So that's for me, but I'm not the seller.
All right, cool.
You still have to take commission.
Still have to pay commission. So that's not the best of the seller because they still got to pay. Why do you guys believe this one is the best?
Because it's a more personal relationship with
Okay. All right.
the marriage.
It's a marriage.
Right? It's a commitment. You don't have to go back and forth with other people, and they will most likely sell more and quicker.
Absolutely. See, here's the thing. An open relationship is just like a for sale by owner with options. It's going to be on the market forever. Is that the best for the seller? What is the seller's interest? To sell.
So,
Open relationship is, hey, if you find somebody, let me know. It doesn't even go on the MLS. Oh. All right.
Change your mind.
This is almost like saying, hey, open relationships without proper protection. Really? Do I have to say everything? It says it all. You have a delayed effect lately.
Supplier.
Keep my comments to myself, we're live.
We're live.
We're live.
All right. So the idea behind it is this. The reason why I always ask this question is to see where your mentality is at. How is an open relationship good for the seller? Just because they can sell on their own and they can just bounce out of it and nobody's going to be going to collect commission? Because there's no commitment, there's no exposure. It's kind of like, hey, Bruno, I want to buy a single family 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I'm like, I think somebody knocked on my door the other day and said if I ever found the buyer for it, you see what I'm saying? Versus, yeah, sure, let me actively search for it. No commitment. No commitment, then no exposure. You guys got it? In exclusive agency, Ron, you're like it's the best of both worlds, right? Because the
Right.
seller, right?
That's what I was thinking.
But we're engaged. It's really not yet the real thing. So there is commitment, but it's, the thing is, how much am I going to put into this if they can still back out?
Is it listed though?
It will be listed. But are we doing open houses? Are we doing full-blown marketing? Am I putting a drone tours and inside tours and bring a photographer? Most likely not. It's not the full show yet. Right? Let me ask you something. If you're engaged, let's look at the different stages, right? If you're an open relationship, you're just dating, whatever, right? When we go for dinner, it's a nice romantic dinner. Here's a flower, here's the chocolate. Maybe that's it. When we're engaged, that engagement party is way better than any other party before. It's like, hey, I really want to impress you because it's going to be the rest of our lives. Liars. And then we go to marriage. It's like a full-blown party, marriage, isn't it? The level of commitment at each level is totally different. That's what I'm trying to say. So the seller needs to have exposure of the property, but also needs the commitment of the agent, right, to make sure that property is sold as quick as possible for the highest possible sales price. If there's not enough exposure, he lays on the market. Lays on the market, property price or value drops. Does that make sense? So which one is the best for a seller? This one. So it's the right to sell. All right. And if you're able to explain these things, express these things to the seller, because you're supposed to explain, even though most realtors go there and say, hey, just sign here, I'll fill it out later, don't worry. A lot of realtors do this. They don't explain anything. Or they put the 6% because that's the standard, right, in New Jersey?
No such thing as that.
There's no standard, but that's what we're comfortable with. That's what we hear out there. Even the sellers already realize 6% is okay, or 5%. That's more or less like it, right? And if you put that on paper, they're okay with it. But did you explain that they have the option to negotiate? Did you explain they have the option to choose? You understand? We don't. But if you know how to explain things, and I had this debate because I'm doing the broker's class on Saturdays and Sundays. So yesterday I had this debate with a few salespeople. If you don't know how to explain the CIS, you'll feel like you're putting people into a contract. The CIS is just a notice to the world of the duties and responsibilities. Here's the same thing. As a sales agent, here's what you can expect from me. You give me less commission, I do less work. Simple. Because I value my work.
I was just going to ask you about that.
What?
I was going to ask you that more than likely if the seller tries to negotiate with the agent for a less commission, you know, the agent would be less enthusiastic about selling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's other things we can do to talk about this, but it's very simple. You can bring higher commissions if you explain the services that will be provided
Right.
up front, and also if you explain that realtors are sharks.
Are or not?
Are. They are sharks. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you want me to list for 4%? I got no problem. But I'll let you know right now that once I put it on the market, we're splitting the fees. So it's 2% for me, which you have to explain to the seller what you're doing with the money. I'll keep 2%, I'll give out 2%. If there's a listing out there that offers 2.5%, there are realtors, not like me, that do care about how much they're getting paid, even if it's not the right home for their clients. Your house could be the best home for their clients if it shows 2.5% or 3%. This is the reason why we ask for 6 or higher, so we can pay out more. That's just one of the reasons, but the main reason. If you're not grabbing the attention, guys, let me ask you something. Your client wants a $300,000 house, single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? When you go search on the MLS, let's say you guys all have a client that wants the same thing. When you go search on the MLS, aren't you going to find the same houses? 300,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single family. The search is exactly the same. right? So it's gonna show 20 houses, let's say. Out of those 20 houses, you start looking at them, the pictures and all that stuff. Let's narrow it down to 10 houses, which your client might want. And then let me ask you something. If they're all the same, similar, right? But the commission structure changes. One says 2%, the other one says 2.5%, the other one has 3% commission. Which one would you show your clients?
3%.
Sorry?
3.
3%? That's what you would do? I would show all 10. Because it's not about the commission. It's 10 houses that are narrowed down that matches my client's wants and needs. But you see how realtors are? Sharks. My point exactly.
That was a
These students-
leading question.
I'm sorry?
That was a misleading question.
That's not really what I wanted to say. That's what you just said. Right? Did you guys understand my point? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the same way that you, because sometimes I do this to my clients, the same way that you would choose the 3%, so will other people. If you bring down my commission, then it limits my ability to work as well. Because unfortunately, nobody works for free, which I would love to, but I can't. I also have bills to pay just like you do. You guys understand? So if we increase the commission, we'll have more people attracted to your property and therefore higher chances of selling your house quicker for a higher price. But if you want to choose a lower commission, then let's add a bonus. How about a $5,000 bonus to whoever brings a full price offer or better? You see what I'm saying? So you either give incentive at the commission or you give incentive with the bonus. And because I say $5,000 bonus to who brings full price or better, if somebody brings $1 less than the full price, do they get the bonus?
No bonus.
You got it? So everything up front, because these 3 realtors are sharks. You guys were too. You all thought about it. I know. You just didn't voice it. I've been doing this for a long time. I read minds. All right, so what else we got? Net listing. Net listing is illegal in New Jersey. It says right here, net listing is based on the amount of money that the seller will receive if property is sold. The broker is free to offer the property for sale at any price. So if the property is sold, the broker pays the seller only the net amount previously agreed on and keeps the rest. Think about it this way. I go knock on your door, Olga, and say, hey, Olga, would you like to sell? She says yes. One of my questions, everybody's question should be, what is your bottom line? The reason why I want to know this is not because I'm trying to get you the lowest value, I'm trying to get the maximum value. If I don't know your bottom line, I don't know what I can do. Does that make sense? Because if your bottom line is above market value, then we can't sell at all as well. So what is your bottom line? And Olga tells me 200,000. I'm like, okay. In today's market, it's a little tough, but how about this? I'll try to get you to 200,000, and anything above is mine. Is that okay? If Olga says okay, and I already know that her property is worth 400,000, how much commission am I getting? $200,000 commission. That is literally 50% commission. Who would like to have a 50% commission?
Those sharks over there.
Those sharks over there, right? Them. I know. Them. Hey, you got somebody on your side that said 3.
No, we're here.
But he said 3% too.
That was before.
That was Anyway. You know what's the funniest thing? As I teach the broker's course for the agents that I have on the weekends, we're talking about greed. And you should see how some of them roll their eyes. Like at the stuff that I say, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, but I want to. They're literally like little kids. Anyway, so the point is, I already know 50% commission is what I want. in the state of New Jersey, we have to state up front that 50% is when you're going to charge. There's nothing wrong with 50%. There's nothing wrong with 100%. The thing is, the seller must be aware up front that that's how much you want. You guys got it? Me telling Olga, I'll get you the 200,000, but anything above is mine, it's open-ended. How is that in the client's best interest? It's not. So it leads itself to fraud because it's not in the client's best interest. In the state of New Jersey, we are a performance-based state, meaning you're able to sell for 300,000, you get a percentage of, or a flat fee that you agreed upon of those 300,000. If you're able to sell for 400,000, you get a percentage of. But everything must be disclosed up front. That's why we don't have this. Okay? In your mind, I know some of you are asking which state? Florida. Okay. I heard that thought coming through. Not sure who was thinking, but somebody was. All right, it was you? Ron? Yeah, I know. That's why he's going there. He was like, and Shanice is like, thank God. I didn't want him on my side either. All right, multiple listing service. You guys know what MLS is, right? You've heard about it? Okay, in front of it, I want you to write Craigslist for realtors. Who can describe me what Craigslist is?
Scary.
What is it? Scary. Craigslist?
Every time I think of Craigslist, I just think of scary.
Wow.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop, that's what you're saying, okay. But what is it? One-stop shop for what? What is it? Why do I compare MLS to Craigslist for realtors?
Any and everything.
Well, in this case, it's just houses.
Right.
The point is, on Craigslist, you advertise services that you're offering, right? Or stuff that you're selling. But the MLS is where we advertise the properties that we are authorized to sell. Okay? And that's where we share with other realtors. You guys understand? So it's a private network. Even though the public has access, there's two accesses, the public and the private, right? The public has access to find all these properties in the MLS. What they don't see is the agent remarks, which is internal between us, where we make certain comments about that particular property, additional things that you need to be aware of, right, as an agent. Also, it's where it shows the commissions. What does that mean? That 2% that I was paying, the 2.5% that I was paying, or the 3% that they so dearly desire, right? That's where it is. It's on the MLS. So, what you need to see is that it's organized within a geographic area. So we have different types of MLSs. We have the NJMLS, GSMLS, Hudson County, Monmouth County, Central Jersey MLS, and so on. There's so many MLSs in New Jersey. There's not one single MLS for the whole state.
I didn't realize the public had access to it.
You can go to the GSMLS right now. Not right now, after class.
Yeah.
GSMLS.com, and it says property search. All right, at the bottom. I already explained this at the that in the MLS is where you find these. How much is being offered to the selling broker? I already told you about selling broker in the first chapters, right? When we talked about rebates. But right below selling broker, I want you to write buyer's broker. Buyer's broker. Okay? Because the one that brings the buyer is the one that completes the sale. Just listing doesn't mean anything. All right, on top. It says, an MLS offers advantages to the broker, buyer, and seller. Brokers develop a sizable inventory of properties to be sold and are assured of a portion of the commission if they list the property and participate in the sale. The sellers gain because all members of the MLS, right, this is whether we're engaged or we're married, so exclusive agency or exclusive right to sell. All members of the MLS work to sell their property. It's exposed. And finally, buyers have efficient access to a large selection of listings, so we can shop around. Where it says sub-agency, you guys can just put a box around this. There's no question that I remember right now, at least in the latest exams about sub-agency. Just put a box. I'll explain that at a later time. Where it says termination of agency, we talked about it in, or listings, we talked about it in chapter 3. And I want you to go to obtaining listings. Now, all legal owners of listing property, their spouses, their authorized agents, as well as the listing salesperson and or broker, should sign the listing agreement. So everybody's involved should sign the listing agreement. Next paragraph says, all listing agreements must include a statement acknowledging receipt by the seller of the consumer information statement and a declaration of business relationship. Who can tell me what is the consumer information statement?
CIS.
Great, so the CIS is the consumer information statement, but that's just an acronym. I'm asking, what is it?
Oh. You were describing how you're gonna, like, how you're gonna,
Ethics.
You getting there? Nope. We're getting there.
how you're gonna work for them, and you're gonna describe it like.
So the CIS describes the types of business relationships. You could operate as a sales agent, buyer's agent, disclosure agent, or transaction broker. Perfect. Here I want you guys to write, ready? Page 34 and page 35. Sorry? Chapter 3. Actually, I invite you guys right now to go to page 34, page 35.
Golden pages down, right?
Sorry?
That's the one that golden
Yeah.
pages.
Which I told you that this week we were going to go over again. Page 34, page 35. What does it say on top of that page?
CIS.
It says read, right? You should have written, please read me. Why? Because it is important. You're going to use this in every single transaction. So some of the stuff in this book you'll probably forget along the way, but this one, as well as lead-based paint, are forms that you're constantly going to have to use. So you need to know how to explain to the seller, or to the buyer, or to both, how you're going to represent them. Because in fact, on page 35, they have to sign. They have to acknowledge what they just received. You guys got it? So it's very, very important you guys read that. Next, the seller must be given a copy of the Attorney General Memorandum on the law against discrimination. The seller must be given a copy of the Attorney General Memorandum on law against discrimination. That's page 57 and page 58. It's where it says, Mr. Seller, you cannot discriminate. If you intend to discriminate, I will refuse to work with you. Okay? We're good? All right. Now, property information for listings. Here's the thing about this part. The rest of this page is going to repeat 3 times the same thing. One of them is exactly this. When taking a listing, it is important to obtain as much information as possible concerning a parcel of real estate. You guys agree so far?
Yeah.
Right? This ensures that all possible contingencies can be anticipated, particularly when the listing is shared with other brokers or salespeople in the multiple listing arrangement. Getting as much info as possible. Usually I like to compare this to going to the doctor. You go to the doctor with a headache. If you don't say all your problems, how can he say the headache is related to one particular thing? There's several reasons why we might have headache. Maybe your job, maybe stress, maybe something you ate that caused your stomach to, malfunction, and now it's sending signals to the brain. A lot of things that could happen, blood pressure. There's so many reasons why you can have headaches. Don't talk about marriage.
No.
Okay, he was giggling. I'm like, I don't know. Okay.
No, I was thinking maybe you got a box from China.
Boxes from China. That's great. I apologize to the Chinese people. It was Ron. It was not me. All right. So funny. It's funny but not funny. Okay. Hey, gotta be careful with these things, man. That becomes discriminatory. Anyway, but the idea is you're going to share information with other people. Think about it this way. If I list a property for sale, and you come to the property and you see the conditions of the property, like, why didn't Bruno mention this in the listing? Right? How are you going to feel about it? Like, how are you going to tell your client, hey, I'm sorry, but the listing agent screwed up or didn't present this? You will say it. And how am I going to look at it in this picture? Really bad, right? So get as much information as you can. This is some of the information required. Let's go to the bottom. The last two are the most important to me. Flood zone information and a detailed list of what exactly is and is not included in the sales price. Flood list. Why is flood zone information so important? Why did I highlight it? Because if your property is in the flood zone, what do you usually require?
Insurance.
Flood insurance. So as a buyer, you should know up front that when you buy this house that's priced right, because usually these are the ones that are priced right, and you're like, everything else is so high. Why is this one at the right? There's something to it. If I don't disclose that it's in the flood zone information, the flood zone area, and you have to pay for flood insurance, right? You want to realize that when we're a month or two into it? How many times do you think this happens? Where nobody talks about it, we're in contract, everybody's happy, we're going to close, and then a week before closing, title company or the mortgage company goes like, wait a minute, you're in the flood zone. We need an elevation certificate and insurance. What do you think just happened to our loan? Well, the loan's going to go higher. You might not qualify, so the deal might go through. It's not guaranteed, but I can say 80% chance or 90% chance it will fall through. 2 months into it, we just wasted time. Whose time?
Your own.
Clients.
Everybody.
Clients. Remember, client first. Your time does not matter. If you screwed up enough to not do the same research that the listing agent should have done, you wasted your client's time, not yours. You just wasted your money because you're not making it. You see the difference? It takes roughly 30 seconds, but let's say worst case scenario, 2 minutes for you to find out if a property is in a flood zone or not. Simple as that. So it could be the seller, the listing agent that should have done it, or it could be you. But do we do it? No, we just rely on information provided by others. Big mistake. Never rely on information provided by others. Always try to get more info. Okay? Next, a detailed list of what is and is not included. How many times have you heard, they even made a movie about it, how many times have you heard of what you see is not always what you get? Right? Sometimes it's listed and you think, hey, the kitchen cabinets are great. Right? We go see it, kitchen cabinets are amazing. The kitchen cabinets are not included. It was not mentioned in the listing, but it's not mentioned in the contract. If you did not ask for it, can the seller take it? It's a long debate. We never know what the outcome is going to be on that one. But the seller could win. You got it? And one simple way to say this is that when you see listings, when you see pictures, that's why I love some of the pictures that realtors take. When you see pictures, there's a bed. There's furniture. That's common sense that it will be there. But do you get the bed and the furniture? No. Unless you ask for it. Your bed's so comfy, you can have it. Right? Unless you ask for it, it's not included in the contract. So what you see is not always what you get. How about pictures in the listing of the property that includes somebody sitting at the toilet? It has happened. Pictures where there's children around. Maybe they intended to sell the children included, I don't know. It was Ron's kids, I don't know. Maybe. I get no solar panels, I'm selling the kids. Oh no, the house. Alright? But it's funny the type of pictures we take. The bottom line is, you have to be very clear about what you get with the property. When I'm listing a property, and I instruct my realtors to do the same, do they always do it? No. Do I always do it? Sometimes I forget as well. But every room that I go to, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is there anything here that you like to include or exclude? And we talked about this in chapter 5, like the wall-to-wall carpet. It might be a fixture, or it might be something that can be removed depending on the intention of the seller. So ask, even if the room's empty, ask, is there anything here you'd like to include or exclude? You guys got it? This is very important, not so much for state exam, this portion, but in real life. Don't waste anybody's time. You know why people don't put these 2 items? What are the reasons? Because if I say the property's in the flood zone, they won't even see the property. Isn't that deceiving? Now that I saw the property. How about, this is what I recommend you guys. It's in the flood zone, okay, no problem. We might still be able to sell. How much are you paying for flood insurance? $600? Let's put it in the listing. The buyer will be responsible for paying an average of $600 because the flood insurance is against the property, not you. So if they're paying $600, most likely you're going to pay $600. Does that make sense? So $600, how much is that going to affect you? Let's figure it out with a mortgage person now. You guys got it? But up front, if it says $4,000, hey, drop the price. Negotiations. But give information up front, right? On top.
You know what I've seen a lot of, like, real estate listings is like, you know, like, to me, the agent doesn't care. Like, they take, like, rooms with, you know, pictures with cluttered rooms. And, like,
I know. Like I said, are you that desperate? That's the problem. Spend time with your clients. It's the most time you're going to spend is the listing, or when you're trying to get a buyer to buy. The most time you're going to spend is the initial interview. From there on, look, if I spend 10 hours in the whole deal, it's too much. Too much. It's the first hour, hour and a half, sitting down with a seller or with a buyer. From there on is just quick 5-minute calls or preparing paperwork. That's it. So the total amount of time you spend on a deal should be around 10 hours. And then you get a $6,000 check, a $7,000 check, $10,000, $15,000 I got the other day. For 10 hours of work.
go to Miami.
That's it. You guys understand my point? Spend the time. Okay? We are highly paid consultants. Spend the time with your clients. Plus, you get referrals. Okay? Now, responsibility for disclosure says right here, as a real estate broker, an agent of the seller is responsible for the disclosure of any material information regarding the property. Getting as much, please highlight, underline with stars, getting as much initial information as possible. Right? Even if asking penetrating and possibly embarrassing questions pays off in the long run by saving both the principal and the agent from potential what? Legal difficulties. You want to get sued? Get as much info as you can. Okay? True tax figure, we talked about already in chapter 8, so just highlight that sentence. Skip to 2 paragraphs, you go to flood prone areas, highlight that, just put a box around it, we already covered. You may be required to place, obtain flood insurance before placing certain mortgages. And at the bottom it says, the more information an agent has concerning a piece of property, the easier it is to negotiate with prospective purchasers, and the smaller the chance that the sale will be hindered by unexpected problems. So, 3 times, 1 page. You think it's important?
Yep.
Get as much information as you can so you don't get sued. Or if you get sued, at least you reduce the liability. New Jersey Real Estate Commission rules and regulations clearly require the salesperson, go to page 129. 131, I'm sorry. Previous version is 130. All right. The licensee to ascertain all pertinent information on the property that has been accepted for listing. The results of the licensee's investigation must be made known to all prospective purchasers. Where it says licensee, does it say seller's agent or buyer's agent? It just says licensee in general, right? Okay. So I want you to write right above this. I know in chapter 3 you probably didn't, so I want you to write here. Anything and everything. Anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. Anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. Doesn't matter if it's the seller, agent, or the buyer's agent. You have to disclose, okay? In fact, failure to disclose, please highlight, underline, put stars. Failure to disclose any known defects or any defect that could have been apparent if a reasonable investigation had been made may make the licensee liable for any claims levied by the purchaser of the property. So things you don't disclose or you should have checked out but you're too negligent, careless, right, could make you liable. And the rules also require the licensee to investigate the financial qualifications of every person for whom he or she submits an offer to a client, the principal. So if a buyer puts an offer, hey, show me the money. It's either have cash in the bank or you have a pre-approval. You got it? All right. You guys already know from chapter 2, you have to cooperate with the licensees, but just highlight it as it is here. We already covered this, so just highlight for them. Any MLS must receive the listing within 48 hours. And any written offer must be transmitted to the seller within 24 hours. Okay. Next says Negotiability Commission. Please highlight the first sentence. Commission rates are negotiated between the client and who? We do it on behalf of the broker, but it's between the client and the broker. Okay. At the bottom, Attorney General Memorandum. That's the memorandum against discrimination. It says at the bottom that the New Jersey Real Estate Commission requires brokers and salespeople to furnish each listing, right on top, with a copy of this memorandum. Please highlight, underline, put stars. Just like we said in chapter 4, we're saying here again, a licensee must refuse, please underline, must refuse to take a listing from any owner who indicates an intention to violate the law against discrimination. So if the owner says, I don't care about that thing right there, that document, whatever, I don't care about it, I don't want anybody that's from the flower religion or somebody that's green to come here. Well, sir, ma'am, here's the thing. I cannot work with you. I'm licensed and I'm not about to lose my license. Okay, don't be that greedy. It's preferable to reject clients than to be known as the person that, follows clients, not to say other things, right? So refuse your clients, reject your clients, it's simple. Next, pricing the property. Here's my question. Who sets the price for the property?
Neighborhood.
The neighborhood? The appraiser? The seller is the one who sets or determines the listing price. Remember this. This is my phone. Not iPhone. My phone. Okay? This is my phone right here. According to what I purchased for, $800 or $900. According to current market value, if I were to trade in, $500. But you know what? I want $700 for it. I'm the one that determines how much I'm selling for. Am I going to sell it? Probably not. Right? Probably not. But I'm the one that determines. But because I'm not an expert at property values, right, or proper valuation, the fair market value must be presented by us, the real estate agents, right here. Because we must offer knowledge, information, and expertise in this area. Seller determines the listing price. We help figure out the fair market price or fair market value. Okay? Make sure you underline the green portions as they are, or highlight different colors. So you remember seller, listing price. Fair market price, we help. Next paragraph, it says, a broker or salesperson can help the seller determine the listing price for the property through a CMA, or comparative market analysis. This is a comparison of the prices of recently sold homes that are similar in location, style, and amenities to the property of the listing seller. Got it? Yes?
Yes.
Great. Next paragraph, it says the CMA at the bottom of the second paragraph. The next paragraph at the bottom. It says the CMA includes material not usually considered in regular appraisals, information on properties that failed to sell, for example, and the list of competing properties currently on the market. It also includes significant days on the market or DOM information. So in an appraisal, they look at houses that sold. Okay? Ours, we include properties that failed to sell, which becomes a more accurate valuation. Properties that failed to sell, and also properties that have been on the market for too long. You guys understand? If you want to list for $700,000, well, Mr. Seller, properties like yours above 600 have been on the market for X amount of days. Does that make sense? Some of them even failed to sell. But if you see here, properties around this value, let's say 600,000, have been known to sell within 3 to 4 months. You guys understand? Comps are totally different than appraisals in that sense. It's more active to the market versus the past.
What's too long in the real estate world?
I'm sorry?
What's considered too long in the real estate world?
Nowadays, 3 months. In this area. You go to other areas of New Jersey, it could be 6 months. Okay, and then it depends if it's residential, if it's commercial. But right here, if it's 3 months on the market and didn't sell, something is wrong. Because as soon as it pops up, it's already under contract. So why didn't it sell? Okay. Not to say that the problem is not the buyer, right? Maybe the buyer doesn't qualify, they just put an offer and decided to move forward. Now, license laws, please highlight and underline, put stars. License laws dictate that a CMA must never be called a free appraisal. Please underline that sentence. Must never be called a free appraisal. It should contain a statement that it should not be considered the equivalent of any appraisal prepared by the New Jersey licensed or certified real estate appraiser. We'll talk about that in chapter 16. Don't flip pages. At the bottom. I told you about the seller price. Like the listing price is the seller that sets, right? Fair market price, we're the ones that help understand the market, right? What about the selling price? The actual, hey, I got it sold price. Who sets that?
Buyer.
The buyer, of course. Okay, so the seller says, I want to sell for this much. We say, hey, fair market value is this much, right? But ultimately, it's up to the buying public to determine if it's worth it or not. The buying public is the one that's going to either bid on that crazy $1 million price or wait for it to drop. And the best example I can give you is if you guys, I don't know where you shop, right? But doesn't matter which store I go to, and don't call me cheap, but each store I go to, I look for the clearance section first. Let me see if I can find what I want in the clearance. Because all it says is that, hey, it's not fashion anymore, right? You're 2 months outdated. It's now in the clearance section. What something that was worth $100 once is now being listed for $70, $60, $50. Does that make sense? Just like my properties, I try to buy at discount, saving money. Does that make sense? So I determine the value of something to be the discounted value. Some people are willing to pay the high value. Do you guys understand? Yes? So there's a difference between listing price and selling price. I told you earlier that when you're dealing with listings, you're dealing with a seller. And the selling price is what the property actually sold for, therefore buyers. Remember that. Selling broker, selling price always relates to buyers. And that's where a lot of people get confused in the question in the school or state exam. You see selling, you think seller. No. The buyer buys, whoever brought the buyer is the selling broker. And that was the selling price, not the listing. You guys got it? Any questions? No questions? We're done. You can stay if you want. I'm just. I mean.